All right, welcome to the Lockdown Podcast. We are here for another week to run down Raw and SmackDown as normal, along with just pontificating. We have a potential backlash card that is starting to fill out, but there's a lot of potential matches that could be. A lot of rumors about it, but we'll just get into the Raw and SmackDown. Just kind of go through them a little quicker than normal. You have Rhea basically coming out and having to relinquish your title due to it. And it was an injury that was really an accident. When you throw someone in the wall like that, you have those backstage segments all the time, and they're like, "Oh, we're really hurt," blah blah. But Rhea was actually hurt. So Liv kind of comes out, as Rhea's relinquishing it and just kind of setting the stage for a future, definitely a future, match that'll probably go for quite some time. You have a Sheamus return versus Ivar. Obviously, Sheamus wins. It's his first match back. He looked a little out of shape, but you know, I still would not mess with Sheamus in one bit.
Oh hell!
Um,
Oh hell no!
so now then you had kind of a video package of Sammy winning the IC title finally. Now there's who knows what the plans are for Gunther. I feel like he'll definitely go into the championship realm. I don't think he's going back to a secondary title thing anytime soon, but who knows where he'll fit in though, because I mean everything's stacked on both sides, Raw and SmackDown right now with, potential championship opportunities. But so now we get Adam Pearce and Triple H coming out to basically present the new Raw SmackDown championships, or they're known as the World Tag Team Champions. So we'll kind of glance by this, but like, what are your guys' thoughts on the new Raw or the World Tag Team Champions?
Okay,
Those belts.
the belts, they look like fucking pizzas.
Uh,
I don't like them.
I like them, and the reason why I like them is that they all have a universal, pun not intended. They all have they all share the same design language. That goes a long way with a brand and bringing cohesiveness to a look for your champions. Uh, Once again, I just gotta I just gotta say that R-Truth is a legend. You know that whole segment. It would have just been boring if it wasn't for R-Truth. It would have just been like, oh gee, some new pizza shaped championships.
Well,
But R-Truth made it once again, and yeah, R-Truth for national treasure always. It's But going back to the championships and how they look, just having
I
a cohesive design language and having different looks for your championships, for your main titles, that definitely just it says a lot for the creative direction that the company is now going and how it presents its championships in addition to how it's presenting its champions and the entire roster. So yeah, I expect to see more changes for championships than not. So I want to see a change for the Intercontinental and for the US championships. I definitely got to see something unique for both of those championships, but something that relates to where they're going to be on brands going forward. And also to the NXT championships, they're way overdue for a design update and a presentation as well.
I totally 100% agree with the NXT ones. They definitely need a
Yeah,
update.
it's been the same and Giant X and T on the belt for the pretty much the length of NXT. And as far as like like what I thought they were gonna do with the tag titles is do what they did for when they had the separate women's title, because now there's no real Raw or SmackDown Women's Champion. You're just the world, you know, champion as far as the women's division Raw and SmackDown. I thought they were gonna kind of do kind of a little differential how they did between those titles for the tag titles, but like I I don't mind the gold. It's just that red part of the title that I really wasn't too
That's
thrilled about.
that's
I feel like
that's the
when
same way
you
with me.
because when we'll get to the SmackDown ones, but I mean, like, the SmackDown ones were just they're just straight gold, and that's it. Very more old school than what they did for Raw. Um, but,
Is
so
there any red on the World Heavyweight Championship that
No,
no.
nope.
No, the
so
the
It's all
tag
gold and
ones
silver.
so
yeah, the tag ones are it's like it's all gold, all looking bougie, and then it has red lettering, and I don't
right.
like that at all.
So yeah, I don't care for the red lettering as well, but with Raw's branding being red, it it
But they
adds to that. It adds to the design language.
but they didn't do blue for SmackDown. That's what was the kicker when they brought out the
Yeah,
SmackDown ones. There's no specific color branding to that. So like that's the confusion. I
right.
mean, and Triple H said he's all about, the new designs and everything, but I think I would be remiss to say that I think that the WWE universe is divided on the titles, but it's not up to us.
Yeah,
So,
true. Yeah,
but so
They don't
now
really
that
listen to the fans.
so
yeah.
basically moving out of WrestleMania, now we're moving towards Backlash. So now we're gonna get a triple threat Raw, triple threat SmackDown to basically who's gonna face who for the titles at Backlash. So you have DIY, Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano versus the Creed brothers, Julius and Brutus, the New Day, and I really, really, really thought that the Creed brothers would have pulled this one, but they did have DIY win, which I mean I'm not honestly as long as it's not as long as it wasn't the New Day. I feel like the New Day are just enhancing talent now because yeah, I mean they're not old, they're not young, but I was definitely I would have taken either DIY or Creed Brothers. I'm happy either way. So now you have DIY versus the Awesome Truth at Backlash. Um not mad about it. Um so now you continue this you get a video package, of with again how CM Punk screwed over Drew McIntyre again. And I mean, whenever CM Punk is good to go, him and Drew are gonna have some bangers.
Oh hell yeah!
I if Drew doesn't come out on top of all of those CM Punk matches, I I I hope he gets released during the show. That's all I'll say. You didn't beat CM Punk. We're gonna cut you loose, and he would be like, "Thank you," and just leave. I would be happy with that because there's absolutely no way that I am going to say that Drew McIntyre brought this on himself. No, absolutely not. No, I'm 100% Team Drew McIntyre on this one. Yeah, nope.
Well,
Yep.
and the fact that CM Punk came back and got injured with barely even doing a match speaks to the fact that he's he's not in wrestling shape.
You
I
know what? I don't think it's not him not being in wrestling shape. I think it is just the human body just not being able to do what the mind wants it to do. It's maybe similar to what Undertaker went through a few years ago when he was just his body was just broken down and he had to like reset and get into health and get into shape and to really like change some things. And
yeah.
maybe with CM Punk's body, he's got to learn how to uh, wrestle in a different way, similar to a Bryan Danielson
Mhm.
or Undertaker or anyone that's that has chronic injuries. It just could just be his time just to be injured.
Right.
But when it comes to just not being able to go, CM Punk has proven that he can still go. It's
Yeah.
just that quite possibly he needs to change the way he's doing it. And
Just kind of adjust the moveset.
I don't expect to see CM Punk in every a match every week. I don't
Right.
think that is a really great way of using him in the WWE. Elsewhere, yes. But even then, I don't think he needs to be in a match every week. I would tolerate 2 matches a month, one before pay-per-view, one at a premium live event. I'm still
Right.
old school. I'm always going to call it a pay-per-view.
Well, same
Oh,
here.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
but-
I'm always calling it the pay per view, no matter what.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a really solid, in-ring schedule for CM Punk, especially given the fact that his second, in-ring appearance, he gets hurt. Injuries do happen. That's what you sign up for when you're a professional wrestler. You are going to get injured. However, I think with him, I would want to protect my investment
Right.
with CM Punk and really use it along the same lines as a Logan Paul. He's a special attraction. Give him something that he can sink his teeth into, that there could be a lot of good character work. That way it brings the most out of whoever he's been paired with and that story that you're trying to tell with CM Punk. Otherwise, keep him out of the ring, put him on commentary, have him do some backstage segments to lead up to telling new stories in the ring. Other than that, no.
Just kind of he's gonna need a limited move set, and yeah, I mean, you still want the star power of CM Punk because he's still a draw.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, maybe 2 matches a month. I mean, that I feel like that makes sense. Just even if honestly they even have him put over talent, like who knows, and so we have the draft here soon, so like we're not, there's going to be probably a lot of NXT call ups. So, like, the amount of people that he can speak into, especially people from NXT, because NXT versus main roster is a whole different monster. But
And I don't think
Monster plus a lot more eyes on the product too.
Yeah, I really don't. I think we need to get rid of that NXT versus main roster. I really think that going forward, it should be just a third brand of the WWE that's called NXT. Just like,
I mean,
we get 2 hours of programming called SmackDown. We get 2 hours of programming that's called NXT. Yeah,
well, they need to travel though. If they traveled and were in regular stadiums, they're
They
gonna
used to.
sell. They'll sell. I mean, they've been kind of eking into more traveling, but like I feel like if you really want to make that essentially the third branding, not just like the semi-developmental, you're gonna have to travel. You're gonna have to have more eyes on the product, because then if main roster goes down to NXT or to NXT, then you want that brand to still look as good as the other two. You can't
don't
have it just in Florida. You can't have it just sitting in Florida, and then with the small crowd with maybe 200-300 people there max.
right.
If you're gonna make all these other main roster push-ups essentially go to NXT, you're gonna want to make NXT feel like another brand when they're having 10. Even if it's just a 8 to 10,000 stadium for NXT, if you're gonna bring other wrestlers to there, you kind of have to
I don't
have a little
think
more
it
eyes.
necessarily needs to have the same schedule as SmackDown or Raw in order to have eyes on the product. I would say summer months, potentially when there is a lot more available time for Americans to just watch the product and visit and, be able to plan wrestling events. I think that would make more sense to be able to say, like, hey, we're taking NXT on tour. We're going to be, for the next 3 months, we're going to have, an event here, here, and here. I think that's fine. But to have them be on the same schedule or a similar schedule, I don't think that is necessary in order to grow the brand or to make the brand more believable. I think having more interactions with Raw and SmackDown performers in NXT does bring more eyes to the product, because those superstars have already been established and they do have some draw power where people are going to find out where their star is and want to watch programming with their star on it. So I don't necessarily think that it's a good fit for them. Besides, NXT is still like a training, rehab, proving ground for WWE superstars. So I think having a centralized location will go a long way in getting them acclimated into the system. That traveling part, I don't think that is necessary. Also, too, we don't know how the financials work on traveling. We're not 100% sure how they work. We can speculate. But if you are not making the same type of main roster dollars as you are in NXT, it doesn't make any sense for you to be like, oh, I've got to be in this city this day, this city the next day. And that's going to cost me $1,500, $2,000 per day. And you're not making that money that can tolerate that financially. No, it's. I think that's a hard look. And besides, we have other companies that are stationed in one or two arenas that do extremely well with their audiences, their territories, so to speak. So I don't think that it's necessary for NXT to travel. However, I would not be against them doing tours, summer tours or fall tours, just to give them an idea of what it's like to travel. But I don't think to grow the product, I don't think it's necessary.
To say before the whole pandemic campaign, they were traveling for a little bit. They were traveling. They came to Michigan, I think, a couple times. As usually it was like Battle Creek or Traverse City. That's where they usually went. They were traveling, not as a lot, but they were traveling when it was under the gold era.
Yeah.
Because I remember seeing it.
Yeah, and I think maybe, we'll see how TKO handles NXT in the next, we'll call it a year. Because obviously TKO, they bought, they own WWE essentially. And so, and you're along with UFC and stuff like that. So I think when the fact that TKO has a hell of a lot of money, maybe something in the next year, couple of years, who knows, in, like you said, right, maybe like a limited, like a tour, and then the kind of maybe in the next couple of years they might regulate it into a full travel schedule. But I think, like you said, they kind of need to ease their way into it, where you got to see, like, hey, are we gonna get the crowd? Are we gonna get the draw for NXT? So I think that makes a lot of sense. So we'll just knock out Raw here. So, you have Jay basically kind of talked about how like Solo and Tama Tonga basically beat the crap out of him, basically excommunicated him from the bloodline. They're saying Jimmy has an actual injury, so we don't know where he'll be in the foreseeable future. So now you have, basically when Liv attacked Rhea, it was justified in the sense of who put Liv on the shelf, right? So when you had Liv put you had Rhea put Liv on the shelf for 8 months. This is minuscule compared to what she did to her. So honestly, like, this is going to start an amazing feud, whether it's through the championship or just straight, back and forth. We'll obviously see once Rhea gets back, and we'll kind of see how that feud develops. So now this is pretty much the last week Cody is, bouncing on shows a little bit just to give his gratitude and kind of his being done with essentially Raw. And now he's an actual SmackDown superstar after winning the title. Basically, thanked Seth. Brings out Jimmy, thanks him as well. And so now that The Rock is basically on hiatus, but he basically keeps on posting crap on Instagram, about, oh yeah, I'm gonna make you bleed, blah blah blah. Cody reciprocates. I'm like, well, if I bleed, you bleed. And so, like, I am ecstatic to see what comes of the Cody Rock, whether he has a title or not has a title. That's gonna be an insane feud. Definitely in the works, and we'll basically probably SummerSlam. We'll probably start seeing something of that develop. So now you have Jey Uso versus Finn Balor. Cody offered to be in Jay's corner, but Jay's like, nah, I'm good. Obviously gets attacked by Judgment Day at the end of it because Jey Uso wins. Go figure, Judgment Day, starts attacking people. But basically, Jay was ready for it. He basically got away with pretty unscathed. So because the Raw was in Quebec, it was definitely really cool to basically Sammy just when he came out, man, he went around the whole stadium. I thought that was honestly just super cool just because, he's essentially the hometown hero and he's coming back with a title, which is even better. And so you have the final match, Sammy versus Chad Gable, because, Sammy said, hey, you know what? You're next, dude. All right, let's run it. Obviously, Sammy wins, but we also see the complete face to heel turn of Chad Gable, which I think I speak for most people. We're like, all right, about time. Chad's been kind of a soft gimmick with the whole Alpha Academy thing. Yeah, I think that it might be shit now instead of shush, but
Yeah.
But like I'm enjoying the the heel, because honestly, like, I love when people turn, whether it's face to heel or heel to face, because you're always like you're like waiting and waiting and waiting, and you don't know when it's gonna happen, but when it happens, you're just like, let's go. So, so now we basically kind of have a lingering possibility that we might run the Sammy Chad Gable back at Backlash. Nothing solidified. We'll probably find out more probably this week, probably tomorrow. As far as what's going to happen with that. So we'll roll over to SmackDown, and SmackDown LA Knight versus AJ Styles kicked off the night, which I was very surprised on. And so, good match throughout the whole thing. AJ wins, which is really surprising to me because there's been so many looming rumor things in the regards to, AJ Styles wanted to retire. So, like, it was weird that he didn't just put over LA Knight. I mean, no one's taken that title off Cody for at least 6 to 8 months.
Right.
But it's like, I really thought, AJ would kind of put over LA Knight. Because honestly, dude, as soon as LA Knight's music hits, it is so hype. Like, it's so much energy, and it's just like his character, man. It's
Look at the way he came out at SummerSlam when we were there.
yeah.
God, that crowd was going.
Yeah.
And that's
You can put LA Knight in that same category of it just doesn't do it for me. But if you enjoy it, hey, high five.
Well, I mean, and like you look at that crowd interaction, like there's probably a thousand haters in there, but the other like 10,000 are like, you know,
He's like, "Yep, I'm one of them."
Well, all right. I'm not a hater. It's just that it just doesn't do it for me. It doesn't, it's his character isn't as engaging as others. The same with AJ Styles. They both are good workers. Obviously, AJ is the better of the two. It's just that
but his new AJ's new music though, I'm
What?
not buying into that at all.
Oh, I love it.
I don't like it in the sense of like it's like you don't want none, and then he goes in his music, but like that DMX one just hit different. But you know, but
somebody
again,
lost-
Oh, what's funny with this is, and I'm gonna change the subject a little bit here. But with AJ Styles' music and what he had before, that technically wasn't supposed to be for him before he came to WWE. That was supposed to be for I think James Storm.
Yep.
That was technically supposed to be for him, but they
Yeah.
changed it and gave it to AJ Styles.
Because James
It
didn't
fits
sign him,
AJ
whatever.
Styles a lot better than would James Storm, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
All right, back to.
hey,
I just had to throw that out there.
We're the land of rabbit trails, Tim. You should know this, dude.
Oh, I know.
Oh my gosh. But so obviously AJ Styles wins, so now you have AJ and Cody at Backlash. So now you have basically they kind of show Solo arriving with the in his what he calls the newest member of the bloodline, his MFT, which is just my family tree, Tama Tonga, which man, the bloodline saga, man, continues. I love the chaos. I love the fact that you finally see Solo kind of coming out of his shell. You have him talking. You have him interacting more. You have him more than the
Man,
face
he
that's
pulls
sitting
that.
like
He
this.
all I can say, man, he looks a lot better in a suit.
Oh my gosh.
He
Well,
pulls
like
that
in-
suit looking good.
Well, dude, and you see him just with this look all the time.
He's like,
And so like I think honestly this is the best Solo that we've seen thus far, and I love it because
Yeah.
it's been a while. We've seen Solo sit back there like he's like holding in a fart the whole show, and you're like,
And
when
I
is this
would
guy
not
gonna
be
talk?
surprised if that was like part of the character development that they wanted to display. Like, this guy doesn't say anything. He's not a talker. He's not, let's just make him a silent, killer. Just
Right.
make him just so badass on TV. And then when they had this transition, to really say like he's just been quietly learning how to do things, and he's just shut up and he's done it. And yeah, I think this is more interesting to me than some of the things that they've ran with the bloodline storylines. I want to see how this goes and what this turns into. Who do they add in? How do we get Jimmy and Jay to reconcile? Who is really behind what's going on? Does this speak to a larger story with The Rock versus Roman? So I'm starting to be more engaged with the bloodline. The bloodline has just not been my thing. I've been more interested to see week after week which member of the family tree shows up next. Is it Jacob?
Right.
Is it Zilla?
Oh, and it's
Does
deep.
Tamina come out of retirement? Do they introduce Naomi with Jimmy? When does Ava Rain come up to the main roster? There's so many different layers to it, and Rikishi's got 4 other kids that can
Right.
join the bloodline at any time. He's got 7 or 8 children, and
somewhere around there.
You know,
It
He was busy.
yeah,
that's the Samoan line, man. Like
yeah,
you
They're
can
like
you
they're like
can
freaking rabbits.
yeah. I mean,
Samoan rabbit.
it's just deep, and there is a lot. I mean, you've got Tamatonga's other two brothers, one of which was already in WWE. So
Yeah,
I'm more
it's
interested to see who joins this new MFT. By the way, just as a tangent, MFT is Micro Four Thirds in camera speak. But okay, I mean, if you want to say my family tree, I mean, I guess.
I mean,
But
there's about 1,000 different acronyms we could probably
yeah,
go down, but yeah.
yep,
But all I could say with what's his name's back in WWE that came from New Japan. Now you got a lot of former Bullet Club members in WWE. Now they
yes.
should
Oh,
make
that
they
is.
should
Well,
they should make their
hey,
own
that
group.
let's save that for the rabbit hole. Let's save that.
Okay.
'Cause
Okay.
I've got a couple of
Uh,
thoughts on that. Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Same
dude,
here.
yeah, dude, it's that's the thing. Is like that's why wrestling is so great because like you can leave and come back, and you could be twice as good, or you know because when you kind of go you shop around a little bit and you kind of develop your character, because like look at Cody Rhodes, look how he was a goofy gimmick, you know, with Legacy, and then he was Stardust and all that goofy stuff, and then he basically went out, reinvented himself, and came back, and he like went from goofy goober to like megastar, you know, and I think that's just wrestling, man. Like you try different things, and whatever works, whatever sticks, you know, you run with. And Cody's had that whole whoa thing in his music since forever. It's just been very subtle. But now with his, you know, newer theme music, you know, now it's definitely more of a, you know, a little bit louder.
Yeah.
Um but yeah. So then now we switch over um to the SmackDown new tag titles. Um and so Grayson Waller and Austin Theory, A Town Down Under, whatever you want to call them. Like they list them as A Town Down Under, but when they introduce them, they don't introduce them like that. They just say Grayson Waller and Austin Theory, which is kind of weird because you have some people saying that and then some not saying it, and so like they need to make up their mind what they're gonna call them.
That is true.
So now we can speak on the SmackDown titles, which I'm all for, dude. That just straight gold. Definitely more of an old school look.
That looks like the Attitude version, Attitude Era looks. I might end up buying one. Just saying.
Yeah.
Add a tag title to my collection. What I got
Yeah,
every
no.
world title.
I know you still gotta buy my Universal Blue one, but
Well, I know.
$100. But yeah, so and then you kind of had a subtle hint of Nick Aldis literally getting in Grayson Waller and Austin Theory's face, and he's like, if you disrespect Triple H again, he's like, you know, and just kind of ripped into him. You're like, you don't disrespect Triple H. And like, I definitely like Nick Aldis as, you know, the
Oh,
SmackDown general manager, dude.
Same.
I think now that you've kind of separated the brands of who's the general manager, I feel like now they're more invested in each brand. And like, there's things Adam Pearce does that's so well done, and you just have the decorum and like of Nick Aldis, and he's just like, I'm not taking crap from anybody, and I absolutely
Because
love
he can
every bit of
still
it.
go. That's
Oh yeah, that
that's the
dude can
funny thing
wrestle.
about Nick Aldis. Yes, he can still go. It would be a shame if he doesn't get a WrestleMania match. You know, Nick Aldis.
That dude is fucking built.
Nick
And
Aldis
he's
is versus Adam
huge.
Pierce.
You could tell
Yeah.
with those suits,
Oh
man.
no. Yeah,
Oh,
just
dude, it's
Just by the shoulders.
yeah. If I were to see Nick Aldis, it would have to be against like someone the caliber of Seth Rollins or Kevin Owens. I don't want to put him in like a match with just anybody. I wanted to mean something like, I told you about disrespecting me, and then he just comes
Right.
out and he just beats you as a wrestler. You know what I'm
I think you
saying?
should beat up Grayson Waller.
Yeah, I agree.
Like
Yeah.
he just snaps one time, and then Triple H is like, all right, well, you know what? You've pissed him off. Now you get a match with him.
Yeah.
Like, just watch him beat the holy hell out of Grayson Waller. Don't get me wrong, I love Grayson Waller because he's very, very good on the mic. He's very Miz-esque of being on the mic. Like, he knows how to make you hate him. And I think, like, those are very, very unique traits. When you can have so much kind of your own little creative twist on your character, as we've kind of had now with the Triple H era. So like, man, like they can say a little more, they can put a little more twist on it, and now you're starting to see, you know, the creative just letting the wrestlers kind of have more freedom.
Yeah. Definitely.
And
The way
so
it should be.
yeah, I mean it's
That's how you keep a happy work environment, and them being happy, want to come there every freaking day to actually do their job and be more open minded with their characters. Like AEW kind of has that, but WWE is finally letting it actually happen because it's under freaking Triple H.
Again,
Yeah.
we've got tons of time for rabbit holes with AEW and creative freedoms and liberties.
so
but
we'll
I
we'll
digress.
go
My
back
bad.
we'll go
My
back to
bad.
the status quo here.
My bad.
So now we have the flip side of the Raw titles having to create a number one contender. Now you have the number one contender match for I don't even know what they even call them. I think they're the world or heavyweight title. I don't know. Tag team.
It's the world heavyweight
Just let's-
tag team.
Okay, something like that. Okay. So then you have Street Profits versus New Catch Republic versus Legado del Fantasma and AOP. That was a very, very intense match. Because you honestly like Street Profits are their own energy. New Catch Republic, there's not much those guys can't do when it comes to flying around. You had Legado, who was again kind of on the same kind of level as New Catch in the sense of like the athleticism, but then you tackle in AOP, which you can kind of tell that they're not quite in ring shape because you can kind of start to very little interaction. You can kind of see him gasping for air a little bit, and I feel like maybe that's just kind of that AOP has just kind of been out of the game for a while, and I don't know where they actually were before they came back. But Street Profits pick up the win on that, and so now you have, the second tag title match. You have Street Profits versus A-Town Down Under, which I really hope Street Profits win and just give that nice short title reign of Austin Theory and Grayson Waller, but I don't know how much dedication TKO is going to want for long, because that's why they cut Roman out, because they didn't want these long drawn out title reigns. Same thing with like Gunther's title. TKO was basically kind of going back to what used to be, where you'd have it for maybe a couple months or something, but it gives more mystery to the shows when a title could swap at any given moment versus like either waiting for a PLE or them putting in one of their friends in a match versus the other person they're supposed to face, and so now I feel like we're going to get a lot more title changes. We're not going to have, like, I think Cody won't go longer than a year as champion.
Maybe.
But we still have the looming storyline of Rock versus Roman, because I've said this a million times, is that the Rock and Roman doesn't need a title.
Nope.
And I feel like that's WrestleMania 41. that match is going to happen. Rock and Roman is going to happen. No one cares about titles because they don't need titles in this because one, The Rock, has the People's Championship, which really just it makes him look stupid because like you're not a champion, dude. You've just put a belt to the mantra of People's Champion.
It's along the same lines as the BMF Championship or the $1 Million Championship,
Right.
or any type of or TNA's digital championship. I mean, what the anyway. There's always something to fight for, and it's going to take a little bit, but they're going to really draw out the story between those two and where the future goes for the bloodline and for, Samoan, dynasty in WWE or even in professional wrestling in general. So I'm excited to see what that looks like, but not as much as I'm excited to see what's going on without Roman, without The Rock, who shows up next. And as far as these long title reigns in TKO, there's so many rumors and reasons why, those, championships are dropped and stuff like that. And I'm excited to share some of my thoughts and conspiracies, but we still got to talk about Bayley and Naomi and Carlito and Santos. So yeah,
I mean, so you basically Bayley talks about her match with Naomi in the back or whatever, and then Paul Heyman comes out with Solo, and now he's basically at the beginning of the show he was like, "Hey, where's Kevin?" Blah blah blah, and now you basically Solo's kind of taken over, and Paul is taking a backseat at this point. He's finally hit his stride, like you said, and honestly, the fact that he was that slow, it was that non-talking character for so long, it makes him coming out of his shell all that much better.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like you said, those slow builds where like, oh, he does nothing. When is he going to do anything? All of a sudden, Roman leaves, and all of a sudden, it's the snap of a finger. Solo's all of a sudden he's got a whole new attitude. His body language isn't the only thing talking now.
Right.
And so you have Tama Tonga basically throws out, Kevin Owens, and he's all bloodied, and like obviously now we're pushing into to the Attitude Era of blood. This would have never been allowed 5-10 years ago or 5-10 months ago.
Nope.
And so Kevin's all bloodied up, and so according to, again, this is, I kind of trying to figure out how Backlash is going to look, and you basically are going to have either Solo or Tama Tonga versus Kevin Owens. I'm definitely more certain on Tama Tonga versus Kevin Owens, with Solo being on the outside and probably interfering in some capacity. Just because that seems to be, whether the bloodline is at full strength or at Solo strength, it's just a shoo-in. Now you have Carlito versus Santos, which I call it a wash match, honestly. I don't even know why this was so deep into the show, honestly. There's nothing there. There was, the LWO and Legato thing. I mean, I'm not quite sold. I'm about 60% invested in that whole debacle, just because I don't know. Like, I mean, what is your guys' take on like this whole Legato and LWO like feud thing? Do you really like put too much stock in that feud?
Maybe, but to be honest, I'm not a big fan of it. It's just kind of getting old. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see how this leads into the development of Dominic Mysterio and his character, and what transpires with that, because there's got to be the payoff's got to be something. Are they going to head back to Puerto Rico, or are they going to do another tour of Mexico? And there's going to be some really good payoffs with that, in the sense that we're establishing new stars. Santos has star written all over him, in my opinion. But you also have Ray and you have Dominic. Um,
I would
that
prefer
needs
Ray right
that
up into the
needs
sunset.
closure, especially with Ray. Is Ray going to, take more of a non-in-ring talent role? Um, is Dominic going to come into his own? Is Santos going to get a championship run? There needs to be more focus and give that more time. But it also could just be like, hey, we need to make sure that we are embracing our entire WWE universe and having representation for the different styles of wrestling, different characters of wrestling, different people of wrestling, and really, embrace these new markets. And it could be a combination of all of those things. We don't know, but we've got to start seeing something towards a big payoff, or at least smaller payoffs that lead to a big change, whether it's the infighting between LWO and Legado, where it's where who's gonna run who, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
So
and you have the looming, the looming mystery of who actually attacked Dragon Lee, right?
right.
Because you can kind of see the cracks in LWO in regards to Carlito, because you kind of see him fizzle in the background a little bit, like he's just waiting to break into like a heel character.
He's
And
good at it.
That's just this thing, That's
in
just yeah.
LWO, I mean, it's not as cool as it was back then. And I feel like Ray just kind of needs to ride off into the sunset, and maybe be a backstage role and helping new talent. I just think, I mean, we all want our favorite wrestlers to be there as long as humanly possible, but at some point in time, they have to let the next generation take over.
And
And so
yeah,
on to the next match, which is again, this is when you kind of get these new talent pushes. So you had Naomi versus Bailey. It was a good match. Obviously Tiffany Stratton interjects herself into the match, basically a no contest. But like, and it's crazy is that Tiffany Stratton, she's lit a fire in the women's division. You can, in a lot of these characters, you can love them, you can hate them, but like, she's doing everything she can to piss everybody off. And that is a good quality when it comes to storyline building in wrestling. When you have a character that like, and like she's a heel, she's like a like 75-25 heel and face. So you're in that weird boundary. Um, but I think that a lot of these NXT call ups have more than proven themselves when they get when they get even just a dark match or a slide in match, like when you had Ilya Dragunov and you had Roxanne Perez come from NXT, on the Raw after WrestleMania. And so I think I don't think people are ready for what, the amount of skill they have developed in NXT. Because like you said, again, we'll go first full circle, NXT is, it's a developmental, but it's also a very honing of a character, building a real good character. And, unless you watch NXT, and I highly recommend it, because you're gonna know what's coming up to the main roster, right? Because, the draft starts this Friday on Friday Night SmackDown, finishes on Monday Night Raw, and so I feel like most of the draft, I'll say half the draft, I know that's probably going high, but I would say half the draft is somewhere circling around NXT call-ups
Mm.
because Carmelo's going to come up. Roxanne Perez is going to come up. I'm pretty sure Ilya will come up. And there's just a plethora of other that could very well come up. And I don't know if the draft is gonna take into consideration this person gets drafted to NXT. So because we don't know, we don't really know the format till all of a sudden we get there, right?
Right.
Because I mean it's technically a Raw and SmackDown, but if you're calling up NXT, do they maybe call some down, to NXT, instead of going up, going down per se?
They should. There are some should go back. There are some that should go back to NXT. To be honest with you, Dominic Mysterio needs to go to NXT.
I think that has always been the consensus, is that Dominic, without his father, would have been at NXT without a doubt, and that he may be missing some things, and that's why they paired him with the Judgment Day. I mean, they're all established stars. They've all been in NXT. They all can give him that one-on-one training, and I just think there could be some refinements with Dominic, but at the same time, he is not his father. I mean, and
far from it.
Yeah, we can talk about that and for days, but he is not his father. He has benefited from his father when it comes to him being on television, but that was a VKM deal. And to be honest with you,
he still has a lot of learning.
Yeah, he's improving every week. If there was like a regression, he would be in NXT.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
A lot of people hate him, but he's slow. I used to hate him, just to be honest. I'm slowly starting to like him a little bit. But he is a good wrestler. He needs a little bit of some mic skills if the people actually give him the chance to speak. He might have some mic skills, but
he needs to get some spankings from mommy.
That too.
My problem is when you have generational talent, I feel like going through NXT is a must, because a lot of them a lot of the a lot of the people that you see now, they were refined under the tutelage of NXT. And
there are some exceptions to that, but
I mean, well, and the thing is too is like even Shawn Spears, when he left, and now he's back and he's in NXT now, but he just shot back to NXT, and then really surprising, they let him have his name Shawn Spears, because it was Ty Dillinger.
Right.
The perfect 10. Yeah. And so again, with that, the creative kind of being, a little more lenient on names, because you're seeing people come and they're just bringing their name with them. They're not doing all these name changes and everything else, especially if they're coming from a different brand.
Plus, he did kind of bring back that character he was doing in AEW with a chair. He kind of bring that into the WWE and worked in it.
Well, and it works. I mean, he wasn't terrible. He's never been really terrible, honestly.
I fucking loved him. He's a hell of a great wrestler.
And you have these different characters that they have great character work if you give them opportunity.
Right.
But when WWE, any brand of wrestling, if you don't utilize your talent, you when they get let go, it's like, why? If you would have gave him a shot, you know what I'm saying? And so but again, when you have a stacked roster, it's the unfortunate thing is that sometimes you just don't get utilized. Like Jinder got released. He came back for a hot second. And he's part of the the few that got released. And it's like he could have been utilized, you know, back when he, was in WWE, maybe 3-4 years ago. I'm not sure how long he was gone for. But he had that facade. He had that, that Pujami like just presence. He had his two little guys with him, and he had the whole music and the whole mantra and the whole character, and I loved it. You know,
Same.
and so, it's tough when there's so much wrestling talent. It's just hard to like give everybody the matches they want. And it's like when you go to, like, let's call it like a Metallica show, or you know these people from the 80s and 90s, and you're like, I want the nostalgia, I want to play this song, but they play new stuff and they don't play the ones you want to hear. You still
Right.
enjoy it. It's just not, you wanted this and this. And that's the misfortune of wrestling, is that you just enjoy it for what it is, and you might not always get what you want.
Yep.
But that's wrestling. That's the sports entertainment business across the board.
Yeah.
It's any sport, honestly. Sometimes you just never get the outcome you want. But when
That's
you
absolutely right.
when you when you happen to get the outcome you want, it's a whole different feeling. So, but yeah, I mean, so kind of as it stands right now, the Backlash card, you have AJ Styles versus Cody Rhodes, Jey Uso versus Damian. You have the Raw tag DIY versus Awesome Truth, SmackDown Street Profits and A-Town Down Under. So the kind of you'd think they're going to happen is basically Sammy and Chad are going to run it back. We'll call it take two. I think Tama Tonga is going to face Kevin Owens in some kind of stipulation match. Whether it's a Samoan street fight, or I like how essentially they just brand different names to match different groups of people, I guess, when it's all just like a no disqualification match. Philadelphia street fight, Extreme Rules match. Oh, wait, they're the same thing, just different names.
Yep.
But it just gives a little bit of flair, I guess. But so a match that I don't even know why is even a thing right now, because you still have the Kabuki Warriors as the women's tag team champions, which have been few and far between of really relevant. I'm not buying the women's tag division, just because they're not really embracing it. They're not having constant qualifying matches, constant like presentations of women's tag wrestling.
I think that currently is a tough sell and hard to get on the card, just like you were just saying a few minutes ago about having such a stacked
Right.
roster or rosters. It's hard to give the women their due without really pushing it. And it's probably just one of those things that are taking a back seat, because there's so much investment with other stories and with other characters that, you've got two people with Kairi Sane and Asuka that can go with anybody. You put them across the ring with anybody, they can make them stars or make them look really foolish.
Right.
Or it could be something as simple as somebody's hurt and we've got to give them a break so they can heal up without taking time off. So that could be leading to this lull in the women's championship. And it might be time to just give the women their due and
Right.
really separate those championships, break them up and give them similar championships like the WWE Tag Team Champions is what they're calling the SmackDown Championship now. And the World Tag Team Championships, which is similar. There should be a Women's World Tag Team Championships. There should be a Women's WWE or WWE Women's Tag Team Championships. Give them the same. Give them the same dues. I
totally agree.
think that that is going to lead to more opportunities for women, or it could lead to more opportunities, or it could make it even more strained because now you have to find a way to book, another set of tag team matches.
Well,
If we,
and they combined the NXT, women's tag team with the, so now, realistically, you could spread those titles across 3 brands
right,
because essentially they combined the NXT Women's Championships with the women's, tag team titles on the main roster. And so, like, you've
which I think is
engulfed.
foolish.
So, like,
Yeah.
they should be, heck, if they have to be on NXT and at least fighting matches, then bring them there. Because NXT is very diverse.
Yeah, I could see that. However, without adding so many championships and watering down the importance of having a championship, there should be opportunities for everyone, or there could be opportunities for everyone to compete for championships. And I think that talks to a bigger question of when is it too many championships and when is it not enough? Because right now the question is, because the women aren't being utilized, the tag team women's division is not being utilized on main rosters, would this be an ideal time to have the women's championship defended more on NXT as opposed to anywhere else? Do we see women's championships defended on Main Event? Do we see them on Level Up? Do we see them on other
There's
programming?
opportunities.
Yeah. So, one, I do think for the NXT brand, there should be a women's tag team championship. There should be. Whatever you want to call it, do that. Simple as that. Do that. And if you're going to say for Raw and SmackDown there is just one women's tag team championship, then there should probably be just one women's championship.
Well, and if you have all those, and that's the thing is the women's division is like a quarter of what the men's is, and so yeah, I mean, realistically, one would be sufficient, but like obviously they are wide. Like the women's, like the top tier of the women's things, that stuff is very storyline built, very put into every show. Rhea's coming out every time. When I mean, Io really wasn't doing much with it. I think Bayley's going to do wonders for the championship, because the problem is that again, and I'm glad we're in the Paul Triple H Levesque era of no more people not showing up, right? Because we haven't even touched this whole show. We have not said anything about fucking Logan Paul. Logan Paul is basically holding the United States Championship hostage, and it's stupid. And if you want to, and I've said this a million times, if they want to draw the crowd for Logan Paul and bring his viewership, bring his subscribers, bring his all of his subscribers to the wrestling product, he has to be there. And now you have him holding the U.S. title hostage, and it's like he's not doing anything with it. He did all he cut was a video promo. Like
I don't think he's not doing anything with it as opposed to others that we've seen with that championship.
I just don't like part-timers. I'm sick of part-timers.
Same here.
We don't.
I don't know if I would. I see him more on television and promoting the championship than not. He's nowhere near the type of part-timer as a Brock Lesnar, towards the later stages of his career. He still shows up at premium live events. He still defends. He still works. We don't know what his schedule is or what his contractual obligations are. None of that. So I can't just say like, oh, it's on a part-timer and they're not pulling their weight or anything like that. What does his contract look like? When is he scheduled to show? I mean, if he's on if he's on programming weekly and he doesn't have to defend his championship, then is he still a part-timer? Do we still hold that same grudge against him? I'm taking it from the mindset of someone who, if I had a really long, illustrious career in the WWE, and I'm still getting the opportunities to be a part of the machine, and I'm holding a championship, ain't no way I'm putting on 5-star classics every week and still being a champion. No, absolutely not. I'll show up a couple of times a month before a premium live event, and I'll defend it at a premium
that's all
live
he
event.
does. That's all he does.
I mean,
that's all Logan's been doing is just.
Don't be mad at me if my contract is written like that, or the need for me. Let's look at it like this. If they were pushing Logan Paul down our throats and really like milking him for all that he's worth, we wouldn't get the Sammy matches. We wouldn't get the bloodline matches. Other people that we are seeing and enjoying, we would not have that opportunity to, because they were giving us something we didn't want.
Right.
So, yeah, do I think Ricochet is a much better and deserving performer? Yes. So I think the same thing about Andre and Santos Escobar. All three of those guys should be United States champion or Intercontinental champion above a Logan Paul. But Logan has proven, both athletically and entertainment-wise, that he's worth it. And I don't like saying it because I don't care for Logan Paul at all. It's paid off. More eyes are on the product. More people are engaged in the product. It's working. Their formulaic method for getting people over and getting people to watch the programming and talk about what WWE is doing is working. It's working with Logan Paul. It probably would have worked with a couple of other part-timers. If they would have booked Ronda Rousey the way that they are booking Logan Paul, maybe, just maybe, Ronda Rousey would have gotten over more than she did in her career, because her career started off really high and went straight down because of who Ronda Rousey is and how they booked her. So it's working for Logan. And I hate to say it, but where he is, I can accept. Now, I would never tell it to his face. I would be like, you're just an athletic hack. Get out here. I would never say it to his face. But at the same time, it's like, you've got to look at it. It's like, we're talking about him. People are invested. People are buying. And it's a good partnership. It's, as much as this is seeming to be a boom in professional wrestling, we've got to take some of the bad with a lot of the good. I mean, there's a balance there. We have to deal with a Logan Paul, even though we know that there are 5 to 10 people that should be United States champion, and that he should have never beaten Ricochet, never. But it told a good story to put him over in the position where he was, and that's why they did it. But in all honesty, No, absolutely not. And if it was anyone else in that position that Ricochet was in, Logan Paul wouldn't have lost. Would have lost, rather. Logan Paul would have lost. But it was Ricochet, and they had a good story. And, it wasn't a clean win for Logan, but it's what it was. Just like Kevin Owens, getting DQ'd, it made for a good story. And it made, it wasn't the exciting outcome. When he gets beaten, people will love it. And it would be like, about time. Would people have a,
But we don't need the drag out of him holding on to it for the longest time before he loses it. Like, I mean, yeah, we're getting the viewership, we're getting, and I get it from the essentially a business standpoint. Like, yeah, you want to draw his crowd, and
right.
And like, hey, when is he going to show up? It's no different than when Roman would basically like, when people knew he was going to be there, like, his one, maybe once a month, maybe twice a month, that he was there, and it's like, okay, yeah, you get the boom of him being there. But like, but we also don't want to get the championship lost in the shuffle because the Intercontinental and the United States Championship are the workhorse titles. Those are the titles that any given night that can be defended. I just don't want it. I don't want him to take away from what those titles mean. Like, I'm all for the viewership aspect of it, but like, the Intercontinental and the United States have always been the workman's title. So those titles bounce around more just because there's more opportunities.
Right.
But when you take the opportunities away, then what's left?
So I would say, depending on the character that is holding that championship, representing that championship, they're probably using those formulas to do that. You know what I'm saying? If it was on Andrade and Andrade was being a heel, we'd probably see something similar that we're seeing with Logan Paul. But because it's Logan Paul and the things that he's done outside the ring and the connotations and the opinions that people have about Logan Paul outside of the ring and what he has done lead to what they're doing with his character and his hold on the U.S. Championship. If it was a Santos Escobar, we could probably see a similar thing. With a Ricochet, we would probably see something different. We would probably see something more where it's more there's pride in defending it, and there's more athleticism in someone like him defending it. If it was a Grayson Waller, or what they did with Austin Theory when
His
he was
brief run,
yeah. It was kind of the same thing. It's like, there's an arrogance about it. I'll defend it how I want and when I want. Versus with a Seth Rollins when it's just like, yo, we're doing
Give me a match any given night.
Yep. So, yeah, I think it's more of
how the stories are written.
Right. And, because there are formulas for it because of what professional wrestling has been. So how do we tell a better picture? How do we change the narrative around those? What if it looked like, Logan Paul was just like, I want to defend every week for the entire summer leading up to SummerSlam. I want to be that guy, and I want people to be sick of me being a champion and being sick of me being here. How do you, what is it like then? It's like the story becomes week after week we see Logan Paul on TV, and I'm sick of it. Can he just go away? But if it was Randy Orton right now who won the U.S. Championship, you think he's going to show up with his back, every week? Like, no, that's not happening. It's like, I'm here to cut a promo, record a segment, then I'm going home and hanging out in my pool. Y'all see me at the next PLA. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, it's I think it's just different just because, we've had, like Gunther was defending it all the time, right? I mean, Seth Rollins basically took any given night he was defending it. And I think when it's hard to match that kind of energy
Right.
because Gunther could go in anytime he wanted to and just freaking mull through people.
Right.
Seth Rollins would go out and do what he do every week, and so like I think it's we've been privileged to like have those kind of champions, and maybe that's just kind of like we're like, oh my gosh, we're getting this every week, we want more of it, but we don't get that, and it's like no press is good press, I guess, with Logan Paul because we're talking about it clearly,
Right.
and so you're getting that, you're getting talked about even when you're not there, and like no, it's so you're kind of you're getting everybody talking. So like you said, when he does lose, we're gonna be like, all right, finally, and then he'll kind of drift away, and then he's only got a couple-year contract.
He'll show
But
back
obviously
up
he
and,
slapped the damn Prime logo on every PLE now, so I have to deal with that.
know,
But
yeah, that's stupid.
yeah.
I'm over that crap already.
You know what? Why
but it's
not?
we're under the TKO though, so it's like
You
we're
know,
under
it-
UFC, so they're gonna start advertising it like a
And it's a breakaway from the history of what has been established and what we've been accustomed to. So yeah. But how does this play into other possible matches that we can have at Backlash? With Mysterio and Balor and Andre and Ricochet.
it's so open ended right now,
Yeah.
and you have your solidified. We'll call it like probably at least 3-4 matches that are solidified.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously like Backlash is gonna have maybe probably 6 matches max, maybe one on the kickoff or something.
Right.
And so, obviously we're not gonna get the prestige of because essentially your main pay-per-views, you basically have WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, and so you have those marquee PLEs where you're really pushing the envelope, but like everything else is just kind of those slow little storyline builds. Because like Backlash, I mean, I don't think anybody's really losing titles at Backlash.
No.
Here's what I'm thinking. I think the women's championships could change hands if Bianca and Jade
Team up.
team up.
Oh,
Officially
that would be
say
that would be a great tag team.
But the bigger question is, who turns heel out of Belair and Cargill? Who turns heel first?
And that's
I'm
the
gonna say
kicker.
Jade.
I think
Yeah.
Jade is
I think Jade would.
I think she's more of a natural heel, but on the flip side, we've had the face Bianca since she's been here, so maybe that would be the real twist, right?
Yeah.
Like
True.
the ones that you can figure they're probably going to do it, and they've kind of already had that kind of run in any other promotions or whatever. But then you have those sleepers.
Right.
You have those sleepers that are sitting there, and like Chad Gable, right? The Alpha Academy, all that like positive pizzazz and all the the good feels, But then as soon as you're gonna heal, you're like, God, it makes so much sense now, And so
I don't think they need to be heels in order to like tell a really great story.
Right.
Just if you remember the entire or the starting off of RVD and Jeremy Lin. Jerry Lynn. Yeah. Is that his? Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeremy Lin. Yeah. So they were just like kind of two faces kind of just going at it, just having these classics of matches. I don't necessarily need either one of them to be heels in regards to Belair and Cargill. What I do need it for it to be is like, what is the story and what overarching story would I want to see? And I'll keep it 100. I would want to see two athletes just going at it,
Right.
just saying like,
yeah. I mean,
Jade
Jade and Bianca would be a banger.
Yeah,
because it's strength for strength. Because
yeah,
you
you
remember
know,
when
yeah.
I forgot what I think it was Damage Control or something like that,
Hmm.
and they were doing this like triathlon or whatever, and you had to carry someone to the finish line or whatever, and Bianca picks up Otis. Otis is a big dude, and she carried him like a champ. She was marching, okay? So I just from that alone, it wasn't like she picked her up and brought her or whatever. Because you always see like, oh, there's such a feat of strength or whatever, like someone picking up Nia Jax. But like 9 times out of 10, when people show the strength that they have against Nia Jax, it's usually they're on a turnbuckle
Yeah,
or it's a very very quick toss. It's not a full, not a full really embodiment of how strong they are.
yeah.
You know,
Jade is a strong athlete without question, and so is Bianca. They both can go. I the story that I want to see, or that I'm interested in seeing, and it's not the only story that I'm interested in seeing, but the one that immediately comes to mind is one of just two women who want to be better at their craft. It doesn't have to be, I don't like you, you don't like me, or there's this conflict. It's more along the lines of iron sharpens iron.
right.
You know what? That is what I want. That's what I would want to see. And it would, putting championships on them, I think makes
You think
more
as
sense than the
if
Kabuki
they were tag
Warriors.
titles, it would water down their talent.
Yeah. Yeah, I,
Yeah,
I
I
I
mean
don't
it's
necessarily need to see the Kabuki Warriors be long-term champions.
I don't know. That's the thing is, but I don't even know who they would put those titles on. Like
If it was,
that's the such the lackluster, tag division because you don't have any really solidified, right?
so if it
Because you don't have
wasn't,
that many women's tag teams that are solidified like
yeah, if it
and so
wasn't
you
them, it would have to be Zoe Starks
and Shayna
uh,
Baszler.
and Shayna Baszler. And by the
Yeah,
way,
because you
Shayna
had
Baszler has women's champion written all over her. I'm
yeah,
just pull the trigger already because it needs to happen. She's
yeah.
she's hit her 40s. She's well established as the best MMA horsewomen that have become professional wrestlers. She had an appearance at Bloodsport during WrestleMania weekend. So I whatever
well,
they're waiting on for her to be champion, I think you'll miss the boat with that, just like you missed the boat with Natalia. Just pull the trigger. She is more deserving of that, of a championship run, and it could just be I'm. She is like I'm the final boss. It's not. It's not
right.
Charlotte. It's not
Yeah, I
Bia.
mean we definitely
Yeah.
got sick of seeing Charlotte as champion and like the amount of reigns she's had, she's been handed. And
Yeah.
like that's the one thing like don't get me wrong, I love Charlotte Flair. I will, always be a fan. It's just that the opportunities she got were just handed to her all the time.
And I
And when you seen that segment about Liv Morgan and talking to Becky Lynch and basically telling her like, yeah, you guys are getting handed all these opportunities, and I'm not getting shit. We're working week in and week out, and we're not getting opportunities, and that's when it sucks because you have all these essentially the roster almost kind of breaking character and be like, I'm just pissed off right now. I'm
yeah.
not getting opportunities because essentially, let's say for the last 5 years, Becky, Charlotte, Bailey, maybe Alexa Bliss, Bianca
Yeah.
Belair. Like you've only really seen the same 6 people hold that championship. Rhea Ripley, like, so you really we're getting complacent where it's like it's the same group of women holding the title, And even if it was a slight 2-month reign of being champion, give someone their come-ups at least for a little while.
I would agree. The rosters are so deep with people that are opportune that with people that there are multiple opportunities to tell multiple stories. Like I'm really interested in seeing what a Shayna Baszler can do as a champion and what that looks like, because there's not a dramatic there's nothing dramatic about her. It is absolutely just
She is who she
raw
is.
skill.
There's no
there's there's it's
there's
who
no
she
there's no
is.
real
It's-
gimmick. She's just a badass.
there's no gimmick. Yeah, it reminds me of a Kurt Angle without, the Olympic gold medalist stuff. It's just like I went from MMA to professional wrestling, and I made professional wrestling legitimate because
Right.
I am an MMA
Right.
veteran.
She has the skills beyond skills. So it's like you said,
She-
pull the frickin' trigger.
Yeah. I mean, she
You
doesn't need
know,
to be able to talk on the mic. There are plenty of people that can talk for her.
Right.
She just pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And that's my unwanted take. Just pull the trigger on Shayna Baszler. And Matt, while you're at it, pull the trigger on Natalya. She should have been a solo.
Natalya has gotten Natalya she's wrestled the most matches of any female superstar ever.
Yeah.
And she has really not gotten opportunities. She's maybe been a champion a handful of times in her tenure. And it's disappointing that as good as she is and as much star power as she has, not
She's-
even just being part of the Hart Foundation, but like just being a good ass wrestler, you're not, and she's just gotten very little in return.
Right.
But
I would say for Natalya that she should be a world champion a couple of times over. Her husband should have booked her championship matches in addition to her championship losses. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of opportunity for stories there with Natalya, and again, another missed opportunity by WWE creative control.
and
creative leadership.
that's the thing is it's I wouldn't want their job,
Yeah,
and
that's
but we could rigamaroo and run these circles forever, but we are pretty deep in the time frame. But
well.
we'll
before we
be
go,
back next week.
before we go,
what's up?
let's quickly talk about whose bright idea was it to release wrestlers during a show live. Who said that this was okay? Was this a Tony Khan thing? Because that's who I'm thinking made the call to release these guys. Is Tony Khan. Whomever he, for whatever reason, they did it then. And that has got to be the ugliest way to release someone.
Well,
Or to find
mean-
out a performer has been released during a show.
Well, think of what happened to Manny Rose. Just because she had whatever her page is or whatever, which you look at Jade Cargill's Instagram and you can see her shit all fucking day. And honestly, really, she's not showing anything inappropriate unless they're paying for it. But because I've subscribed just for S&Gs to it, and it's just she's sexy as hell. It's not even like she's showing anything explicitly sexual. And they did her dirty, which she's fine. She's kind of like the proverbial middle finger, but because
the whole from what I understand from the Mandy Rose things, and Tim, you can like comment on this if you know anything, was like people had asked her, and this was pre TKO, had asked her, it's like, yo, this content, what you're showing, it's coming down. Can you, we need you to shut this down because it's coming down to us that this is highly inappropriate. I know you're in NXT, you get a little bit more, mess up leeway, but we need you to, shut this down, pause this, something or another. And she was like, no. And then they were like, all right, well, we'll need to figure something out. And what they figured out was, all right, we're going to have you drop the championship until we can figure out some other things. And figuring out other thing was letting her go. If this was in the Triple H era, maybe it would have been handled much differently. But because this was the pre-TKO era, it was handled the way that it was. They knew what they got when they signed up Jade. They're probably having a little more mess up leeway across the board with some draws, But if it was someone else, they probably would have been like, "Yo, this has got to go. We're not gonna allow this."
Well, in some wrestlers, I've noticed via Instagram and stuff, are now having subscribe pages, and technically that's illegal under their name. If they're making money off of their name, that is a WWE trademark and copyright. Like, I don't know how they're really doing with that, because like Cora Jade, for example, in NXT, like, she has a subscribe page. A couple other of them have subscribe pages for X amount of dollars a month. So if they're making money off of their name, if it was an independently, if it was they're using their actual name on something else, I don't know how that's getting dealt with in this juncture.
Maybe deals have been restructured for some of these, where they now can have ownership of their name, because you look at Mustafa Ali, who's using his WWE name outside of WWE. Sean Spears brought in his Indies name.
I think they've loosened the leash a little bit, obviously.
Yeah, I would not be surprised. But so the other really big thing about these releases that happened is that they're all people of color. All right. And you've got Indashir, you've got Jinder Mahal, Xia Li, who's been with the company since 2017. And it was her from what I can recall, and I know someone will, correct me if I'm wrong, which I probably am, but she wasn't going to come to WWE, and it was a conversation that her mom had with Triple H, because Triple H wanted to sign her, and just like, you got to take care of my kid,
I don't think the releases were anywhere, because Jinder Mahal and his group Indashir just didn't have anything, and I think they really had no plans to utilize them. I just think, when we start seeing these next round of releases, we'll say in the next couple months, I guarantee you it'll be just a couple surprises, couple of go figures, and that's how it goes with WWE. Sometimes they'll release them and then all of a sudden, poof, they're back. I mean, Braun Strowman did it, Bray Wyatt did it. A couple other ones did it where they'd get released and then all of a sudden, poof, they're back.
Right.
But, I don't want to go too deep into this. I mean, we can definitely cover this, next week and just kind of continue to dive into it.
Right.
Just because, releases are a hot topic because you really don't know. Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah. I'll say I won't be here next week.
What?
No, I'm going to be in Detroit for the NFL draft.
Nice. I think that's a good call for you. someone's got to be there. You can cover it all for us, and you can say like, "Oh,
Right.
this yet to be announced WWE superstar just got picked." Because for
Who got drafted
everybody,
to the Lions? Roman Reigns.
yes. So that would be dope.
The
Yes.
bloodline is in the D.
Oh goodness. Well,
Oh,
all right.
Oh man. Yeah. All right. Well, we will end on Roman Reigns going to the NFL. All right. Well, this is the Lockdown Podcast. I can't even speak straight. Peace.